Welcome to the Explainer. If you've ever stopped to wonder exactly how subtle, almost invisible forces shape our lives, our ambitions, and even our very nature, well, Marge Piercy's profound poem, A Work of Artifice, kind of holds the blueprint. Today, we're unpacking this striking literary metaphor to see exactly how a simple, everyday gardening technique actually mirrors deep societal conditioning. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so picture this. Imagine the massive, wild potential of an 80-foot tree, right? Something robust enough to literally be split by lightning on the side of a rugged mountain. Now, contrast that raw, untamed power with a carefully pruned tree, sitting at just 9 inches high, confined entirely within an attractive little pot. This extreme visual juxtaposition, it's absolutely the beating heart of this text. So the bonsai tree here, it's not just a gardening technique. It operates as an incredibly powerful extended metaphor. I mean, think about it. Some bonsai trees are hundreds of years old. They are literally ancient giants trapped in tiny bodies. So, by definition in this poem, the bonsai represents a profound loss of growth and freedom. The tree isn't small because of its genetics, it's dwarfed by its environment.
Section 1. Meet poet Marge Piercy. To really grasp the weight of her poetry, we have to look at Piercy's own, completely unpruned growth. Born in Detroit back in 1936, her world really opened up during a bedridden childhood illness. That's when she discovered that books offered this entirely different world. Refusing to stay confined, she actually became the first person in her working-class family to attend college, on a scholarship no less. She eventually built a life completely of her own design, even winning major literary accolades like the Arthur C. Clarke Award. Now, her literary work definitely doesn't exist in a vacuum. As our sources outline, Piercy's writing is deeply rooted in 3 main things: her Jewish heritage, her communist social and political activism, and her feminist ideals. Understanding this foundation is absolutely crucial. It primes us to look past just a simple poem about a houseplant and really uncover the sharp societal critique hidden right beneath the surface. As we can see right here from the biographical context, Piercy explicitly uses her work to interrogate societal structures. She sharply questions whether women were historically expected to simply remain confined as literal materials of interior decoration. And this context, it tells us exactly what the bonsai represents: the historical expectation for women to remain tethered to the household, their roots tightly tied down. Section 2. A Work of Artifice. All right, so here is the full text of the poem. And right off the bat, just notice the brilliant visual structure of the words on the page. The actual shape of the text instantly mirrors the narrow, constrained shape of the pruned tree it's describing. These short, visually dwarfed lines perfectly reflect the subject matter. It's just a masterful piece of structural mimicry. She opens the poem by immediately establishing this massive what-if of lost potential. Quote, "The bonsai tree in the attractive pot could have grown 80 feet tall." She wants us, the readers, to recognize what this tree was genetically capable of achieving in a natural, unrestricted state, before we even begin to look at what it has actually become. And the crucial point is right here. This lack of growth isn't some natural accident. It's the direct result of a gardener who deliberately carefully pruned it. That word carefully is so loaded. It implies highly intentional intervention. It represents the external societal forces and traditions that actively step in to limit an individual's potential. This brilliantly illustrates the absolute most insidious part of the conditioning, because it's not just physical constraint, right? It's psychological. As the gardener whittles back the branches, he croons to the tree, which is such a soothing, almost loving word. He's telling it that being domestic, weak, small, and cozy is simply its true nature. It's essentially a form of gaslighting, convincing the subject that its artificially stunted state is actually its natural biological destiny. Section 3. Unpacking the metaphor. So let's break this down. The physical manipulation of the bonsai is a brilliant one-to-one metaphor. The attractive pot represents women historically confined to domestic tasks. Sure, it looks nice from the outside, but ultimately it's a cage. The pruned roots represent being tightly tied down to specific responsibilities and limits. And being kept 9 inches high, that is the absolute restriction from ever growing to one's true intellectual or personal size. This all builds into a much broader, much darker warning. She writes, "With living creatures, one must begin very early to dwarf their growth." Piercy is pointing out that to successfully restrict a living creature's potential to this extreme, these artificial restrictions must be applied during childhood, long before the creature even realizes it has the capacity to grow 80 feet tall. Section 4. The cost of confinement. To drive this home, she lists some visceral historical examples, starting with the bound feet. With this single, powerful phrase, we are forced to confront the violent reality of physical mutilation disguised as a standard of beauty. Just like literally snipping a tree's roots, foot binding physically prevented women from walking freely, permanently tethering them to the domestic space. Then, she moves seamlessly from the physical to the psychological, mentioning the crippled brain. This refers to the really devastating toll of denying someone equal education, intellectual stimulation, and basically just the freedom to think expansively. When society dictates that your only purview is the home, the brain, much like an unexercised muscle or a pruned branch, is forcibly kept small. Next, she brings the metaphor right into the modern, everyday domestic sphere with the hair and curlers. Here, she's directly equating extreme historical restrictions like bound feet with everyday modern grooming rituals. It strongly suggests that the immense amount of time, discomfort, and energy spent on maintaining an artificially attractive appearance is really just another, maybe more socially acceptable form of pruning. Finally, she ends the poem on an incredibly chilling note with the hands you love to touch. This line reveals the ultimate purpose behind all of this artifice. This artificial crippling, the softening, the shrinking, the pruning, is packaged specifically to make the subject docile, lovable, and pleasing to the very gardener who is doing the pruning. The weakness is cultivated specifically because it is desirable to the one holding the shears. It's a really powerful and honestly slightly uncomfortable realization. So I want to leave you with this question to ponder today. Look at your own life. How much of what you consider to be your natural disposition, your preferences, or even your limitations is actually the result of society crooning to you as it gently whittles back your branches? Thanks for joining this explainer, and keep questioning your boundaries.